Enticed by the idea of living with our granddaughter, we took on a $1,900 monthly mortgage and rebuilt our 40-year-old house into a luxurious two-family home. However, Mike and Betty showed no intention of paying their agreed share of the monthly mortgage or utility bills. When we confronted them, Betty smirked.
What's the problem? You and Tom are working and still have money, right?
We worked hard and saved that money, and we're still working hard.
Think of it as a gift for your oldest son's family and granddaughter.
I didn't want to live in that old dump, so I got you to rebuild it. If we said it was to live with Emily, you'd throw as much money as we needed.
Mike sneered.
Come on. This place is on a big plot, over 4,000 square feet. Why should two old geezers who don't have much time left hog it? We'll make better use of it.
Exactly. I just had them build a house to my liking, and later, I'll take it for myself.
Betty chuckled softly.
Basically, we're saying this house is for Betty and Emily, so get out.
Tom and I exchanged glances and shrugged. All right, let's move out.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We turned our backs on Betty and Mike and went back to our room. I clenched my fist tightly and retorted silently in my heart. Laugh all you want for now. Whatever comes your way later, you'll have no one to blame but yourself. I'm Mary Johnson, a 70-year-old homemaker. I live in a house with a garden with my husband, Tom, while working as a craft instructor at a local community center. Although I thought I raised him well, my oldest son, Mike, somehow keeps his distance from us. When Mike left home for a job, he didn't come back for over 20 years and kept ignoring our attempts to contact him. I found out through a postcard with a picture that he had married Betty and was living in an apartment in the city with their daughter, Emily. After persistently reaching out to see my granddaughter, Mike and Betty finally started bringing Emily over on event days. However, they always leave right after dinner, so we hardly get to spend quality time together. One day, when I was feeling lonely, Mike called me.
That house must be pretty old by now, right? Let's rebuild it as a two-family home and move in together.
He said it was Betty's idea. It was surprising that Betty wanted to live with us.
If we live together, you can see Emily anytime.
Those words moved me. That would be wonderful. I'm all for it. Let me talk to Tom about it. I immediately discussed it with Tom when he got home.
I think it's a good idea.
Tom responded positively. The house, which we renovated years ago, is 50 years old and will need to be rebuilt soon. If we split the cost and living expenses with Mike's family, a two-family home wouldn't be a bad idea. When I gave Mike my approval, Betty sent me a message.
Please consider my requests for the new two-family home. If you can meet just these, I'll leave the rest to you and Tom.
I was taken aback when I saw her list of demands, along with images of a house and a floor plan she sent. I printed the images and showed them to Tom. Tom, look at what Betty sent us. Tom's eyes widened in surprise, and with good reason. The conditions for the two-family home included not only the desired floor plan, but also an astonishingly detailed list of demands. For instance, the house had to have an orange roof and white walls in a Mediterranean style. All the garden trees were to be removed, and the entire yard replaced with grass, completely imposing their preferences on us. It felt as though it was entirely their house. When I gently voiced my concerns over the phone, Betty responded in a high-pitched, rapid tone.
I just want a modern, stylish house. Is that so wrong?
I'd like a small area for planting garden trees. You can decide the rest however you like. Although I thought I was compromising, Betty seemed upset. She responded in a sharp, angry tone.
Fine, forget about living together. But don't expect to see Emily anymore. I won't let someone who bullies her daughter-in-law near my sweet Emily.
I couldn't understand how this could be considered bullying, but I decided to give in. Fine, you can do whatever you like.
Thank you so much.
Betty exclaimed excitedly and hung up. If she wants everything her way, why doesn't she just build her own house? The thought almost slipped out, but I swallowed it, not wanting to cause more conflict with Betty. When we asked a housing company to create a rebuilding plan, they estimated a mortgage payment of $1,900 per month without any bonus payments. Splitting this with Mike's family, each of us would pay $950. After getting Mike's approval, I signed the contract. The following year, the Mediterranean-style house Betty wanted was completed. Although it's one train stop away from Emily's elementary school, and she's graduating soon, they managed to get permission for her to commute by train instead of transferring schools. And so, Mike's family began living with us. On moving day, Mike and Betty, barely stopping to greet us, excitedly admired the spacious living room and stylish kitchen. Emily quickly came over to Tom and me, her youthful smile lighting up her face.
Now I get to live with Grandpa and Grandma. I'm so happy we can see each other anytime.
Her cuteness brought smiles to both our faces as we greeted her warmly.
I'll be out for work during the week, but feel free to come upstairs on weekends or in the evenings.
We'll have lots of chats, Emily. Even though Mike and Betty had pressured us into this two-family living arrangement, I realized it wasn't so bad if it meant living under the same roof with Emily. That evening, we ordered premium steaks from a famous restaurant, just as Betty wanted.
Keep it down.
While Tom and I were chatting with Emily in the living room, Betty shouted her complaint at us. So after dinner, we moved upstairs to our living area and made up for lost time by having a long, enjoyable conversation with Emily. In this way, we got along wonderfully with Emily. The problem, however, was Betty. Her inconsiderate behavior irritated me time and time again. For example, she often went out alone in the evening, leaving Emily behind. When Emily frequently came upstairs during our dinner, we asked her why and discovered what was happening. Another thing that bothered me was how the bottoms of Emily's socks were always dirty. Even though Betty was a stay-at-home mom, it seemed she neglected both cleaning and cooking. I'll make extra dinner portions from now on, so feel free to come up and eat anytime. Hearing that, Emily looked relieved. But Betty's issues didn't end there. During weekdays, I'm often out of the house for work. When I came home, I sometimes heard loud laughter coming from the first floor where Mike and Betty lived. Betty had invited her friends over and was hosting lively gatherings. One day, wanting to relax with a cup of tea, I opened the cabinet only to find that my favorite tea set and tea were missing. Again. I sighed in frustration. The culprit was Betty. She had entered our living space and taken things without asking. When I gently pointed it out after her guests left, Betty dismissed it as if it were the most natural thing in the world.
That lovely living room deserves a German tea set, don't you think? All I have are cheap domestic ones. And your tea is way better than the stuff from the grocery store.
I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know before using them.
Seriously? Complaining about me using some dishes and tea? That's so stingy.
The tea set was a birthday gift from Tom, and the tea is something I regularly order from overseas. I couldn't see how it wasn't wrong for Betty to use them without asking. By the way, Betty, when are you planning to pay your share of the mortgage and utilities? You're 6 months behind. At this, Betty's eyes flared. and she lashed out in anger.
I already told you, didn't I? Mike's overtime hours have been cut, and we're struggling financially. Do you want Emily to go without new clothes?
Well, why don't you get a job, Betty? And why did you buy such an expensive sofa and table?
That's none of your business. I'll pay when I can, so stop nagging.
After her outburst, Betty glanced at the shared entrance area of the two-family home, her lips curling into a mocking smile. Hanging there was an embroidered piece I had made and framed.
I could never do something as tacky as what you do, Mary. Ribbon embroidery, right? You teach your students that silly stuff, don't you? And for what? Pocket change. It's hilarious you call that a job.
Her insult toward my work made me feel a surge of anger. Sure, it might be more like an extension of my hobby, but I've always taken teaching my students seriously. When I hear about a student of mine becoming a teacher or starting their own class, it fills me with pride. I didn't want to hear criticism from someone who leaves her child unattended to go have fun. Feeling like I might explode if I stayed there any longer, I pressed my lips together and went upstairs. I kept quiet, afraid that if my relationship with Betty soured further, she might forbid me from seeing Emily. A few days later, while walking through the arcade street near the station, I spotted Emily's back. Just as I was about to call out to her, a group of girls with school bags appeared from a side street, and I assumed they were her friends, so I walked past. But immediately after, I overheard something that made my ears burn.
Emily, your family can't even pay $500 for rent. That's so poor. You're the only ones who haven't paid rent for 3 months. My grandpa told me.
I turned around and quickly ran to Emily. She looked up at me with teary eyes and tightly clutched the hem of my clothes.
Grandma.
Can you explain what I just heard? I knelt down in front of the awkwardly silent girls and asked for an explanation. That night, after Emily went to bed, Tom and I went downstairs to confront Mike and Betty. Emily told us everything. You two were bragging, saying, "If we move in with my parents, we can live for free. No rent, no expenses. Were you planning to dump all the mortgage payments and living costs on us?" Betty smirked.
What's the problem? You and Tom are working and still have money, right?
We worked hard and saved that money, and we're still working hard.
Think of it as a gift for your oldest son's family and granddaughter.
I didn't want to live in that old dump, so I got you to rebuild it. If we said it was to live with Emily, you'd throw as much money as we needed.
Mike sneered.
Come on, this place is on a big plot, over 4,000 square feet. Why should two old geezers who don't have much time left hog it? We'll make better use of it.
Exactly. I just had you build a house to my liking, and I thought I'd take it for myself.
Betty chuckled softly.
Basically, we're saying this house is for Betty and Emily, so get out.
Tom and I exchanged glances and shrugged. All right, let's move out.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We turned our backs on Betty and Mike and went back to our room. Betty's crude laughter echoed all the way to the second floor. I clenched my fist tightly and retorted silently in my heart. Laugh all you want for now. Whatever comes your way later, you'll have no one to blame but yourself. That day, when I returned from shopping, lively laughter echoed through the shared entryway. Looks like Betty's hosting her friends again today, I thought as I started to head upstairs, only to run into one of her guests in the hallway.
Hello, thanks for having me.
A refined woman with long hair greeted me. Hello, please, enjoy yourselves. At that moment, Betty appeared with a smug grin.
By the way, Hannah, didn't you say you liked crafts? Mary teaches at the community center near the station, earning pocket money in her retirement. It's some ribbon whatever thing, like something little kids play with.
Hannah's expression immediately changed.
Wait, I saw the name Mary Johnson on the door plate. Are you the Mary who was at that recent craft contest?
Well, yes, I suppose.
Mary, you're skilled enough to enter contests? That's impressive.
No, you've got it wrong. Mary serves as the head judge at the largest craft contest in America every year. She's even been featured in women's lifestyle magazines.
Hannah's passionate correction left her cheeks flushed with excitement as she shyly turned to me.
Mary, it's such an honor to meet you. Well, could I shake your hand?
Oh goodness, it's embarrassing to be treated like some kind of celebrity.
You are a celebrity. Why do you turn down TV appearance requests? You're missing out.
I get nervous even with magazine and newspaper interviews. I could never handle TV. As Hannah's eyes sparkled and she grasped my hand, Betty's expression twitched with discomfort. Given how much Betty had mocked my work, finding out the truth must have been a shock. Teaching at the community center was a side job I'd taken on as a favor to an acquaintance. With income from commission pieces, magazine features, and book sales, I was able to secure mortgage approval even at my age.
Betty, I'm so jealous that you get to live with Mary.
Thanks, Hannah, but my husband and I are being kicked out by Betty on the weekends.
What?
Mary, stop saying such nonsense. Hannah, let's get back to everyone else.
Betty hurriedly pulled Hannah by the hand and retreated to the living room, clearly flustered.
She's so sneaky, keeping it a secret that she's famous.
That evening, after Tom returned from work, Betty summoned us to the first-floor living room and unleashed her anger.
Mike, why didn't you tell me? I was so embarrassed in front of my friends.
Didn't I mention it?
Mike scratched his head as Betty glared at him.
Anyway, if you two move out now, it'll really look like I kicked you out. So for now, let's forget that idea. You can stay here a bit longer.
That's not an option, is it, dear?
Not at all.
Betty's face twisted in confusion as I refused without hesitation.
Can't you just cancel the movers?
Why don't you worry about yourself instead, Betty?
What?
Your overdue apartment rent. If you don't pay it soon, it could turn into a legal issue. Are you okay with that? Mike turned to Betty with a look of surprise.
What's she talking about, Betty?
It's nothing. Mary, let's talk over there for a second.
Betty grabbed my arm tightly and tried to drag me into the hallway, but Tom and Mike stopped her.
Let go.
If you've got something to say it here.
Faced with their stern tones, Betty clicked her tongue in frustration.
Hey, Betty. I've been giving you money every month for living expenses and rent, haven't I? And didn't we already move out of the apartment? I trusted you to handle all this because I've been busy with work.
Really? Betty told me your overtime was cut and your salary went down.
If that were true, I'd be home earlier. Hey, Betty, why did you lie about that?
Well,
Betty stammered, unable to come up with an answer, so I decided to help her out. All that money went to those antique-style furniture pieces you love so much, lunches with your mom friends, and branded clothes, didn't it? Mike's expression darkened. He practically shouted, looking like he was about to grab Betty.
What? You spent the money I worked my ass off to earn on that kind of stuff? We agreed you'd only use what you could afford from your savings and allowance.
it's not my fault. Mike, your salary is too low. Socializing with mom friends costs money, you know.
Betty's rebuttal only made Mike angrier.
Then get a job yourself. Emily's in 6th grade now. You could at least manage a part-time job.
Maybe she's too scared to work, worried her sticky fingers might get her into trouble again. The second time around, it won't end with a settlement. Betty glared at me with a terrifying expression. Mike looked back and forth between us before turning to me with a slightly more respectful tone.
Mom, what exactly do you know?
Well, when I got your wedding announcement postcard, I hired a private investigator to look into Betty's background. I mean, wouldn't you be curious about what kind of woman doesn't meet the family before the wedding and never visits her husband's parents afterward? While I spoke cheerfully, Betty looked down with a bitter expression, as if she'd swallowed something sour. That's when I discovered something shocking.
What is it?
Betty was fired from her job for embezzling company funds.
Mike gasped and looked at Betty in disbelief. She paid back all the stolen money and a settlement fee, so the charges were dropped. After that, she didn't seem to cause any more trouble, so I decided not to tell you. But it looks like her reckless spending habits haven't changed even after 20 years. Mike was speechless, and I couldn't help but smile. Well, it's not our problem anymore since we're moving out.
Exactly. You two can work together to pay off your debts.
Tom gave Mike, who wore a look of utter despair, a light pat on the back and said cheerfully,
You'd better start looking for a new place soon.
What?
This house will be handed over to someone else next weekend. Getting a quote from the moving company takes longer than you'd think.
Mike's voice trembled with panic.
Wait a second. This is my house. You can't just sell it.
The house is in Tom's name, you fool. As I laughed, Mike and Betty froze in shock. Oh dear, looks like you two will need to find a place to live quickly.
3 people, including Emily. Mary, are you okay in the head?
I'm not going with you.
Emily, who had somehow appeared at the entrance to the living room, made her declaration. She walked over to where we were sitting on the sofa across the table, glared sharply at her parents, and let out her anger.
Because of Mom, the landlord's grandchild made nasty comments to me.
I'm sorry. I'll apologize.
Gone was Betty's usual arrogance. Her shoulders slumped as she murmured her apology. They knew the landlord's grandchild went to the same school as Emily when they moved in. How could they not think about the possibility of Emily being subjected to such comments?
It'll be easier for you to go out and have fun without me around, right? Besides, I'm tired of Dad leaving everything at home to Mom. From now on, I'm going to be Grandpa and Grandma's kid.
Emily's unexpected rebellion left Betty and Mike flustered.
Wait, what?
Emily, living with old folks isn't easy. Think it over.
Emily coldly rejected Mike, who was trying to win her over with a coaxing, sweet tone.
It'll definitely be more fun than staying with you two.
I inwardly sighed at Mike and Betty, who were visibly disheartened. If they truly cared for Emily, they should have raised her with more love and attention. Anyway, you'd better start looking for a new place to live. With that final advice, Tom and I returned to our room. That weekend, Mike slammed divorce papers down in front of Betty. He was furious, not only because she had hidden her past embezzlement during her single years and racked up debts buying luxury furniture and branded goods on his modest salary, but also because she had the audacity to belittle him as a low earner despite being a stay-at-home wife.
Please, don't divorce me. How am I supposed to pay off all this debt on my own?
Mike sharply rebuked Betty as she clung to him, crying and pleading.
It's your debt. You can work to pay it off yourself. And by the way, the apartment lease was under my name. What do you expect me to do if the unpaid rent puts me on a blacklist? I'll be demanding alimony. so make sure you pay it in full.
After settling the overdue rent from his savings, Mike packed his belongings and moved into a small studio apartment. By then, Tom and I had also moved, taking Emily with us to our new single-family home. Abandoned by her husband and daughter, Betty was left shouldering her extravagant debts along with alimony owed to Mike. When moving into a cheap apartment, she sold her fancy furniture and branded goods online to pay off part of the alimony. To cover the remaining balance and her living expenses, Betty started working at a restaurant. She worked tirelessly from morning to night, using her earnings to pay off debts and alimony, while managing her living costs with whatever was left. After some time, worn out from her lifestyle, Betty began persistently calling and messaging Mike.
I finally learned the value of money. I'm sorry for mocking your low salary. Please forgive me. Let's start over. And if you could erase my debts, that'd be great too.
Fed up with her selfish messages, Mike blocked her. Because of this, none of us knows where Betty is or what she's doing now. Although Mike is Emily's legal guardian, she refused to live with him, so Tom and I took her in. When Tom demanded repayment for the 6 months of unpaid living expenses and mortgage Betty had dodged, Mike willingly paid the full amount. In return, he requested to see Emily regularly.
I don't want to live with Dad, but I guess meeting him occasionally is fine.
Emily's response was a relief to Mike. With Betty's whereabouts unknown and feeling abandoned by Emily, he must have been incredibly lonely. Mike now makes a concerted effort to stay involved in Emily's life, despite his busy schedule. He frequently contacts her and takes her out to eat on weekends, showing more effort than ever before. Although Emily is mature for her age, she's still just a 6th grader and at a stage in life where parental love is crucial. I hope she can receive at least her father's love and grow up strong and happy. I am now happily living in a lovely little house with my kind husband, Tom, and sweet Emily. Shortly after we began living together with them, I talked to Tom about Betty's overbearing behavior. That's when Tom showed me a newspaper flyer featuring the perfect property. It had a photo and layout of a red-roofed log house with a garden. It was just my style. Knowing my tastes well, Tom had saved the flyer instead of throwing it away. I still remember how he smiled warmly as he watched my excitement. When we contacted the real estate agent, the house was still unsold, so we quickly completed the process of selling the 2-family home and used the proceeds to fund the purchase of the log house. We were simply waiting for the right time to move in. Once the chaos of moving settled, I received an exciting new job offer. I was asked to become the craft club instructor at Emily's elementary school. I can't wait to get started. Although I've been busy with preparations, my mind feels light and refreshed now that I've cut ties with Betty and her extravagance. From here on, I plan to pour my passion into my work while continuing to enjoy a peaceful life with Tom and Emily.